thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner.
And today we are talking about being present with our children, which many mothers, all of us, find enormously challenging with one of those, with all those many things, I suppose, that are running through our heads, the to-do list, the to-be list, to-go list, I suppose.
And then there's the screens.
Yes, the screens, which I think we're all guilty of. We want to get our children off them and then we want to get ourselves off them most of the time.
Or on them.
Or on them. To steal those moments of sanity. There's a bunch of tools we can look at to becoming more present with our children and kind of giving ourselves permission to leave the dishes and go into the play that our children beg of us so much. Mm-hmm. Jules, I guess with 3 children, I'd love to hear how you over the years have developed the capacity to be there more in that.
Oh man, that's been my biggest journey, I think. I have always really struggled with present time. I think we've all come from a bit of a generation of, you went outside and you played or you entertained yourself or whatever it was. So, and I didn't really have a mum that played. I don't really have memories of my mum playing. So it says to me that probably she didn't.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and I guess personally believe that because I have such resistance to playtime. It's almost like I can see one of my kids is ready for play and I'm like, oh God, play, kill me now. This is,
Yes.
And I so realised that again, the biggest resistance I have to that is obviously where the biggest soul growth is. And the amazing thing is that when you really give yourself over to present time and you find a way, and we're going to talk about ways to make it work for you, is the extraordinary connection and joy that does actually come out of it on the other side. But it's almost like you have to smash through, or I certainly have to smash through this brick wall of my inner child stuff to get to the point of joy and bliss of the inner child. It's really difficult.
It's funny you say that about you think that your mum probably never did, because I feel, sorry mum if you're listening, I feel a bit like that too, and I actually see her make a really concerted effort in my perception that she plays with
oh my gosh, my mum too. As a grandmother, it's like she's had a do-over. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
I actually relish and wish I could be as good at playing and present time as she is now.
I'm glad you say that, because I feel sometimes guilty around my mum because she's just I feel like she's so much better at it than I am.
Same. Do you know what? I just feel like there is something extraordinary about grandparenting. It is like a do-over. They don't have the slog and the hard work and the late nights and the dishes and the house closing around them. They get these beautiful snippets of time where they can choose, admittedly still choose to just enjoy it.
Just be without all of the kind of...
Yes. I actually kind of look forward to grandparenting and it's going to be sweet. But anyway, yes, no, I totally hear that. I'm so jealous of my mum and how amazing she is. But that's been a huge amount of growth for her as well, I think, to get there. There's clearly some big stuff that she shifted to be able to do that herself. Perhaps she didn't have it as a child either, which I dare say she didn't. She didn't have parents that played with her. So it's a huge amount of growing up to get there. Anyway, present time. Yes. How do you do it? I think when I'm really struggling or I'm low on resources, it becomes more challenging. So if I'm having one of those days, moments, weeks, who knows what it is, I factor in a time. So I will look at the clock and go 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, you're going to be present in whatever it is. And so for 5 minutes, I'll do it. And then I feel okay afterwards, then going, okay, Mummy's had enough of that, so you can choose to play or you're coming to cook with me or clean the bathroom or I don't know, whatever it is that you're doing. And then I feel okay about that. And the funny thing is that for them can also be a type of play anyway and doesn't necessarily negate present time for me either. It might not be legitimately playing, which is another scenario. But I think that you can engage them in present time when you're cooking and when you're cleaning, and because they're interested, all of those things are learning tools for them. So I still feel like present time can be bigger than just playing toys in a moment.
Yes.
I think present time is easier out of the house as well. So a trip to the park, a trip to the beach, who knows where you are visiting Nana or whoever, is much easier to be present than when you're in your own home.
Yeah, and I think I commented to you once that I almost enjoy parenting more out of the house, and I think it's for that reason that I think I'm able to be much more present.
Yeah.
Because there's not the to-do list that's kind of encroaching on that time, you know, and all of those things that you can see you need to be done. You're really able to give yourself over to your child exactly where they are.
And particularly if you're doing something that's pleasurable to you, I think that's the other key, is if you're able to connect in with your inner joy, and that might be that it's a shared experience or it's something that you love, a place you love being at, a thing you love doing, it makes present time much easier because you're having a shared, cherished moment rather than it being this sense of self-sacrificing to do something you have no interest in whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that your child is getting a moment of playtime. Like, it's a very different way of shifting that. So incorporating your kids in something that you find joyful, whether it's a space or an actual activity, really makes present time much easier.
I think that's a good point, because I think sometimes, especially with the amount of running around a lot of mums and parents have to do for things like sports and, you know, I imagine that there'd be a level of resentment sometimes around that. And I think too, how can you make those have-tos more enjoyable?
Yeah. I don't know. I actually really enjoy them.
Yeah.
I really enjoy running them around because I really enjoy, I guess, the things that I have two obviously older children and then I have a baby. So it's a very different experience for me as well. And I feel like I'm kind of experiencing two worlds at once, which sometimes can be really difficult to juggle and to manage. But the actual running them around to activities I find incredibly insightful because, one, I get to really witness my children in the world with other people doing something, because the extracurriculars are only something they love, isn't it? So something that really speaks to their soul in some way and lights them up is actually a total joy to watch. It's just, I actually love it.
Yeah.
I never want to be able, well, I have to, like on a Monday night, actually, like tonight, but normally I like to be able to sit and watch them for at least half of the time that they're doing the activity for before I have to rush off and come back or whatever it is, because it is such a joy just to watch them. And generally they're far more I don't know, conversational, joyful, whatever it is, after that experience as well, because it's filled their cup.
Yeah.
So, and I also check in with them. So then getting present time after that, particularly with older children, I'll ask them specific questions around, you know, not, oh, did you enjoy that? Was that good? I'll say things like, oh, do you think there's anything that I could learn out of that? Do you think, because my son loves basketball, do you think there's any drills that we could use at training that you learnt tonight? And he just instantly lights up and he wants to share the experiences, and it peels apart all of these layers. So I think also present time as your kids get older can be certainly very physical and play and rough housing and all of that stuff, but it can be very conversational as well, as opposed to the really young child where it's a lot about eye contact and touch and, you know, being really physically close. It can also, it morphs as your kids get older.
And that conversation becomes so important because that's, you know, around the age that they can tend to start to shut down and not want to open that dialogue. So however you can meet them on their level through meeting them in their interests is really important.
Oh my gosh, can I tell you I had the biggest lesson in that? I don't think I saw you. I had the biggest lesson in that last week. Week before, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, my son Heath, his classic fallback mechanism is to shut down, which for me is a very talkative, you know, female who's come from a female household of, you know, screaming and yelling and over emotions, to all of a sudden have, of course it's my perfect dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have this male who's my first child, which to start off with was a shock, who shuts down, doesn't talk. So there's no raging, there's no tears, there's no screaming, there's no yelling.
You'd almost rather the raging
Oh
than
my
nothing.
God, I would rather that. He just stonewalls. There's nothing. It just is a total shutdown. And we've tried so many tools over the years, and we have things that work on some days and things that work on others, but, you know, a plethora of a toolkit, which perhaps is a podcast for another time. Anyway, it had got to the point where he just wasn't speaking about anything, and I was feeling hugely disconnected from him, and I could not figure out what we were doing. We're just constantly butting heads, and it was just angry a lot of the time. And it was Mother's Day weekend, that's right, and we were at Mass and on Saturday night, and the priest there had said to each of the kids, you know, what's something extraordinary about your mum? And he's like, I can't think of anything.
Oh,
my God, kill me. And his dad came fully beside after and go, you can't think of one thing? And he's like, no. And I went, oh my goodness. let it go. And then the next day was Mother's Day, which of course is the day all about, me.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't in the end. But anyway, it was all about Heath that day. I can't tell you how many times we heard the sentence, today is not about you. Today is not about you. Today is about your mum. And he just went into total shutdown. He was foul. He was non-cooperative. He was grumpy. He was this 15-year-old stormy, just hideous. And anyway, I had been lamenting to so I had this beautiful space with one of these mums at school and said to her, my goodness, blah, 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 this is what happened and all of this stuff. And she was so beautiful and she listened to everything I said. And then she said to me, oh, it sounds like he's really needing some love and some, cuddles, and he's got some really big feelings there. So then I had to think about it. And do you know what I realized? And I'm so ashamed actually to say it, is I can't actually remember the last time we had really slow cuddle time. I actually can't remember it, because it felt like the older he's gotten, and he's only 9 now, but he's a very independent, feels like he's 14, something that happens to boys when they're 8 and 9, I swear to God, they turn into teenagers. And because he does this shutdown thing, it was like the more he shut down, if I try and reach him when he's in that shutdown funk, it gets worse. It's like the wall gets thicker and he moves further away and he moves further into himself. So I had got to the point where I'm like, okay, here's your choice. These are the tools you can use. These are the tools that I can use. You have a choice to stay where you are or to use them, and I'll help you either way. And so he would often choose not to. So I would just allow him the space to do whatever he needed to do to then come back out of it. It would only be once he's out of that funk that I would reach him. So, but of course, what's happening in that is more and more separation and more allowing him to be on his own. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it felt more respectful, and the more intensely I tried to, I'm going to say, aware parent him in those shutdown funks, the more badly, in commas, it went. It just never went.
It really resisted it.
It really never went, and I tried it from so many ways. It really never went anywhere that was helpful. It just didn't. And so allowing him, I started to recognise there was nothing I could do in those moments. So we had a set of tools to get him back to balance, which for him is very physical, moving stuff through his body, particularly anger, which I think for a lot of boys it probably is. So he had a list of things that he could do with his dad or I, or some things that he could do on his own. So anyway, so back to the story. So I had that moment where I went epiphany, oh my goodness, that's completely left, just about because of this gradual allowing of space, respectful space. All of a sudden it had just started to disappear. And then, we had started probably 6 months ago. His sisters would go to bed at 7:30 and he would stay up until 8 o'clock. And that half an hour was supposed to be a check-in time for him. So how's your day? What's been going on? La la la. And checking in about anything that had happened for him during the day that was a little bit difficult for him to deal with. And of course, what that had turned into was half an hour of you sit and read quietly and I'll do the dishes and tidy up. And again, that had started to slip away. And I went, oh my goodness. And so I said, yes, you're right, I really need to. So I went back that night, and we, again, weren't in a really connected, really good space at all. And so instead of doing the dishes and instead of tidying up the house, I just went and sat next to him on the couch in that half an hour of quiet reading time. And his little sister was still up his baby sister was still up at that point in time. So I just sat on the couch and I was reading books to her. And then every now and then I'd just touch his head or squeeze him in for a cuddle and then let him go again or something like that, just to engage him in some sort of physical cuddle type of activity that felt like it was going to be okay for him. And then by the end of that half an hour, he was snuggled right up against me with his head, on my chest, reading his book. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I literally can't remember the last time that this happened.
It's beautiful.
It was so beautiful. And the next day, I would say he was completely balanced and we had no issues whatsoever, which again was a revelation because I feel like we've spent the last 6 months in some sort of dynamic loggerheads. And then the next night, as we were getting the girls ready for bed, he asked for it. So he said to me, Mum, can you sit on the couch and cuddle with me tonight? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, I can. And so now every night I've put the list of things aside, and that half an hour of quiet time is one to check in. How'd your day go? Anything happen you want to talk about? How was the footy oval today? Because all sorts of things happen for boys on footy ovals. And then we just cuddle, and either I read and he reads, or he reads to me, or whatever it is. And it's literally just half an hour of total contact time that's just him and me. And I cannot tell you, like, that's another form of present time for me. And I cannot tell you how enjoyable it is and how connected he is now, and how so many of his bad, in commas, behaviour patterns have just disappeared.
Wow.
Just disappeared.
And he probably really looks forward to that time now. You know, even
he
if
really does.
even if
Every
he
night
doesn't-
he asks for
Yeah.
it. But it's also just that flipping on its head of bad behaviour,
Yeah.
isn't it? Is what is the unmet need? What is...
And it's a key point to make, is that this whole idea of bad behaviour or children playing up is ultimately it's an unmet need. It's crying out for connection. You know, which is often so hard to give them in a moment where we feel like they are
so
playing
hard
up.
when you've got your hate on for them in that moment. You're just thinking, you are just torturing my life. What are you doing? Yes.
Okay. When all you want is them in a different room to give yourself the space.
But do you know what this lesson was for me? Was that it's actually, I mean, there are tools and things to do in those moments, and I think that that's worth, you know, looking at in another podcast. But I think the point is that when you're in the moment, it's too late. You actually need the connection prior to that, and the relationship prior to that, to do any sort of helpful movement in that.
Yeah, because you're coming from nothing otherwise.
Yes. So I just think present time morphs into so many different things that we don't have to get so stuck in it has to be building blocks or playing trains or I don't know, whatever it is.
I think it's picking up on the subtleties that your children enjoy or crave, or, you know, tend to repattern every day. You know, that they, you know, what do they seem to love that you can, you know, join them in.
And also, I mean, we talk so much about using playful parenting tactics, don't we? That using play, but beyond play, using present time in a facilitated way, if you like, for dealing with whatever it is that they're reverberating in that moment. So I couldn't see my own stuff for, you know, the wood and the trees or whatever that saying is. And it took this beautiful mum who I was willing to open up to say to me, oh, it sounds like you really need something that he's not getting. That I went, oh my God, I don't know how I didn't see that. I don't know how I didn't see that, but I didn't. So sometimes it just takes vulnerability with another person for them to pull it out, but also recognizing that behavior, whatever behavior it is that's really annoying you at this point in time, is there because there's an unmet need there, and you can consciously play that out. So there's loads of playful games. So playful parenting and aware parenting are both excellent tools for playing out behaviors, and you've had plenty of experiences with those.
Yeah. And I think, you know, a typical one with toddlers is sort of them biting. We're going through a big phase of biting at the moment, and when I have capacity, it's, oh, if you're biting me, you must need kisses, you know, and I lavish him in kisses, because the biting is a kind of need to get out,
Angry feelings.
Yeah, angry feelings and frustration, and also
and
excitement.
Tears. Yeah.
Tears, and it can be a whole spectrum of emotions, and with Hugo, it often is kind of like, oh, I've got so much stuff in me, I need to get out, and what he doesn't need is shut down from that, because that, for him, is a kind of like, oh, I've got so much in my body, I need to get out, can you help me? A real sort of, I struggle a bit with present time too, but what I give him every night when I'm home with him is we have a bath together. We've been doing that for a long time now, probably well over a year, and even tonight it was beautiful. He said for the first time, I love you very much.
Oh, it's so sweet when it comes from there.
Yeah, and I know that was completely unprompted. And that moment of connection, even after a busy day where I may not have had much space with him, and especially if it's been a day that I've been working, you know, for him to know that Mummy and him have a bath, you know, and it's a time when I can't do anything but sing songs with him, or, you know, let him squirt water in my face and do all the things to Mummy that he doesn't get a chance to do during the day because I might be rushing around or, you know, not entirely there with him. So present time doesn't always need to be taking a big chunk out of your day to do it. It's also about asking yourself, how can I work it into the things that I already do, or the things that we already do as part of our things to do during the day?
That's so good, as not making it something separate, but making it something
and
inclusive.
I mean, you know, as you're saying about helping out with things, you know, Hugo's at that age now where he wants to do everything himself.
That can be frustrating.
It can be, yeah, it really can be, and that's a good lesson in making sure I leave enough time for things, because you know, there's lots of spills and lots of, you know, false starts trying to get into the car and all of that. But when I can give it to him, you know, and I really do try to as much as possible, especially in the kitchen, he's just so proud of himself, you know, and so he's getting to learn these great skills and be supported in that. And I also get that sense of joy seeing that he's able to learn new skills, you know, constantly. So it really can be, it doesn't have to be about going to play trains or, you know, do whatever. And, you know, it can even be things like sitting in front being with them when they want to watch a movie. Like he's just the age now where we've, you know, allowed a bit of TV time and he's right into that. And I found myself just getting lost in children's movies and giving ourselves permission to sit there with them and unpack what's happening on the screen and talking to them about, oh, wow, how fast did that car go? And, you know, just doing that with them can be so beautiful for them to have you cuddled up with them and just being right there in that space and not being distracted and not doing anything else but be there with them, even if it is in front of a screen.
Yeah, absolutely, because present time can be many things, can't it? And I think it's worthwhile noting that when present time is really needed. So when present time is really needed when there's behaviour patterns coming up that are really driving me crazy or they're getting into trouble at school a lot or something like that. There's an unmet need there. It's also when we can look more internally at ourselves and realise when we're really distracting ourselves, when there's conflict within our relationships that they're potentially playing out, when there's internal conflict because we've got an issue going on with someone or something or a life choice. When
they've got fears that, you know, are coming up.
Yeah, great. Fears at night, absolutely. So trouble getting to sleep, wetting the bed, even night terrors, any of that stuff does to some extent speak of there's unmet needs there. And present time comes back to that. So the more that we're wanting to distract ourselves with screens, the more we're wanting to have this need to be busy and to keep moving on to the next thing, the more, again, it's one of those red flags that just says this is out of balance and let's just stop a moment and see what's really needed to come back in, which is the hardest time when it is to do it, but it's amazing the healing that comes out of it if you really do take the opportunity to dive into it. And if you're starting off at baby steps, do start with 5 minutes.
Yeah. And even, you know, and you can even have that conversation with them, say, you know, it can start to be a bit of, oh, we're going to have, you know, present time now, and they can even, you know, you can get a stopwatch or you can allow them to be part of it if that's what you want to do. That's absolutely an option. And then they also do know that there's, you know, a set amount of time that they can expect from you to be solely focused on them, and that also gives them an opportunity to ask for that.
Yes, it does, by giving it a title and a known. Yeah, the timer, I've had people using the timers before and I've heard that works quite well.
I haven't done it myself, but I do know some people who advocate doing that, and I think it also is lets you off the hook other times where you don't have the capacity, knowing that your children will ask for it when they feel that they need it too.
Yes, and the other thing is loving limits always kick in often at the end of present time, because present time allows connection and therefore the point of vulnerability or emotions to connect, and that can mean that when there's loving limits or time to stop and move on with something, that shutdown prompts them to go, well, you've just opened up this something that's sitting here and now I want a space for it to come out. So it is also worthwhile knowing in your mind that it's hard, you know, even when you go and pick your kids up from the grandparents or something and they burst into tears when you first say hello to them, the grandparents go, well, they haven't been like that all day today. Again, it's that moment of connection that allows the opportunity to release. It's the same thing with present time, that when you've really connected with them and you've given lots of beautiful eye contact and there's that heart-bursting feeling that's kind of coming around, that's going to connect them to their emotions, and that's going to allow them the opportunity for all the other stored stuff that they might have stuck in their bodies, that then when you're putting the loving limit time to stop it now is going to want to come out.
It's all going to bubble over.
So don't feel like, well, I've done this and I'm not getting the rewards of now you're going to toddle off and be happy for the rest of the day, because sometimes it can be actually what's needed is connection so they can release, so they can get back to balance. So it's worthwhile knowing, I think, even just for yourselves, that you may or may not need to factor in, particularly if you've got a child who's got some backlog, I suppose, of emotions, that present time might be 10 minutes, but then you might need 15 minutes of crying time where you're holding them and being present. And I know that's really hard. I know.
That's a really key point to make, because I think sometimes your automatic response might be your own experience as a child, which would have been that, why are you crying? There's no reason to cry.
Yes. We've just had a lovely time together.
Yeah, all of that. But in fact, the beautiful thing about it is that connection time has created the space for those feelings to come up. It's created a trustworthy sort of connection for them to feel safe enough to let those things out. And as much as we can facilitate that next step of allowing them to release is ultimately really healing for them, and gives us, a space to sit with whatever comes up for us in that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if I've got too much else with present time, do you?
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of, we cover it nicely there. Yeah, but I'm really open to people sort of asking a bit more about how to do it, because I know, it can be a little bit of an interesting concept to get your head around sometimes. So there's a lot of resources around if you want to, pop on the Facebook page and ask us any questions about how we do it, or if there's particular, challenges that you're navigating that you want some insight on. Definitely ask some questions and we'll be happy to help you.
Yeah, definitely. We love that sort of Facebook conversation and
yes.
private messages if you need to.
Yeah.
Or if you're really after more one-on-one help with your parenting or woman journey or your career journey or pulling apart any of that, then please jump on our websites, which is
suburbansandcastles.com
and naturopathicbirth.com.au.
Thank you. See you next week.
Bye.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.